The following is a foreword written by Mr. Sean O'Connor, an adjunct professor of criminal law at the Texas Law College and a practicing attorney in Waco, Texas. Mr. O'Connor was the investigative partner, legal counsel, and longtime friend of the now-vanished Brandon Jones, principal investigator in what is presently come to be known as the TARN conspiracy. Despite the risk in publicizing his role in the investigation into whether executives at TARN Defense Industries played a part in the disappearance of the Archangel II, Mr. O'Connor has graciously agreed to allow us to use his true name throughout this project. We at the TARN Justice Project would like to express our gratitude to Mr. O'Connor for his tireless work in seeing justice served, as well as lending his credibility to this project. The editors, TARN Justice Project.
I wish I could say that I felt shocked when I found out about Brandon, because people are supposed to feel shocked when someone they know goes missing, right? They're supposed to worry, think about the last time they saw the person. They're supposed to try and remember what the missing person had been wearing, or if they've been acting out of sorts. Had they seemed depressed? Distant? Did they say or do anything to indicate they were about to vanish? That isn't where my mind went at all. Not because I don't care about Brandon. I love the guy. I mean, I hated him sometimes too, but I think that's par for the course when you've got the kind of history we had. He and I could go a couple of months out of touch, but the moment one of us called the other, we'd pick right up where we'd left off, as though no time had passed at all. I don't have a single other friend like that. Or, I guess I should say that I didn't have a single other friend like that. Way before Brandon went missing, I knew that he'd angered people in Archangel. How could I not? After all, I'd been with him when he'd done it. I watched him step on every toe he could find during our investigation into Thomas and Madison. These were powerful people, mind you. They were the kind of folks who played golf with senators, who threw dinner parties with all their buddies who just happened to also be federal judges. I'm talking about TARN Defense Industries kind of people. The elite of the elite. Not just in the mostly rural logging town of Archangel, but of the entire world. Those are the people Brandon made angry. And unfortunately, they didn't take kindly to having a couple knuckleheads like us start poking around into what they did with those missing kids. The facts boil down to this. The guy dug too deep into a conspiracy that connects very important, very powerful people in the defense industrial complex to the disappearances of two small-town teenagers. That's why I'm not surprised about Brandon. Hell, if I was going to feel surprised about anything, it would be that I'm still around to help tell my part of the story at all.
In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex. The potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power exists and will persist. We must never let the weight of this combination endanger our liberties or democratic processes. We should take nothing for granted. Only an alert and knowledgeable citizenry can compel the proper meshing of the huge industrial and military machinery of defense with our peaceful methods and goals, so that security and liberty may prosper together.
The TARN Conspiracy. Written by Scott Clemons and J.P. Tirmizi. Episode 1. Audio file number 1.0, transcript of Sheriff Elena Donovic conducting press conference regarding the disappearance of Thomas Novak, September 25th, 2019. Archangel Sheriff's Department, Township of Archangel, Washington State.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you all for coming. I prepared a statement I'd like to read before I give you an opportunity to ask questions. Today, the Archangel County Sheriff's Department accepted an offer by the Federal Bureau of Investigation to assist with investigating the disappearance of Thomas Novak. As I'm sure you all know, our investigation has stalled somewhat after we recovered Mr. Novak's truck on a logging road near Archangel Lake. Even so, the investigation has been our department's highest priority, and the assistance of the FBI in no way reflects the quality of the work performed by my deputies. In fact, I believe wholeheartedly that my deputies are more than capable of closing this case on their own. Unfortunately, the decision of whether or not to include the FBI on this investigation lies with the town council. And it is their opinion that turning the FBI's considerable resources on this case is the right next step. All right. That's it from me. Now, if anyone has questions. Yes.
Does your department have any suspicion of foul play in regards to Mr. Novak's disappearance?
Not at this time, no. But we are not discounting any potential explanation. Next question. You there.
Yes, Sheriff, has your department conducted any searches of Archangel Lake as of yet?
Archangel Lake is nearly a mile deep in places. Some of the caves down at the bottom might go even deeper than that. We don't currently have the means to search that far down.
Has your office requested help from TARN Defense Industries in conducting a search of the lake?
TARN's security team has reached out to us with an offer to provide assistance in searching the surrounding areas, but we have yet to discuss any plans for TARN to search the lake on our behalf.
And why is that, Sheriff?
My understanding is that TARN has a lot of sensitive military research going on in the lake. That research could keep our military men and women safe overseas. We can't expect them to put that on hold for a local problem. Next question. Yes, you.
Yes, thank you, Sheriff. Do you have any plans to consult the recently retired Sheriff Donovic on this case?
Are you asking if I'm going to ask my mom for help?
Your mother was the sheriff here for over 2 decades. You've been sheriff for less than a year.
The people of Archangel Lake showed their confidence in my ability to do this job when they elected me to office. They didn't vote for my mother.
You don't think having an experienced investigator might prove useful?
We're done discussing this. Next question.
Do you have any comment on Thomas Novak's role in promoting the right-wing 3% movement?
Is that a CNN logo I see on your jacket there, ma'am?
Sorry, Sheriff, but I don't see how that's relevant.
And I don't see why I should take an obviously biased question from a fake news organization. Next question. Yes, you.
Sheriff, what, if any, role do you believe TARN Defense Industries played in Mr. Novak's disappearance?
Are you serious? Is that a serious question?
Well, Mr. Novak's YouTube channel had dozens of videos covering the Strategic Forge information leak from TARN Defense Industries. I'd say that's very serious.
If you're asking if I'm aware that Mr. Novak helped to spread sensitive information that our enemies could use to hurt us, then yes, I am. If you're asking if I think it had anything to do with his disappearance, then the answer is absolutely not.
Considering that many of those videos had upwards of hundreds of thousands of views, don't you think it's at least possible that his outspokenness against TARN may have played a part in his disappearance?
Let me be clear to all you fake news people out there who want there to be some link between Mr. Novak's disappearance and TARN. There is none. None. If there was anyone I would be unlikely to suspect, it would be the good people at TARN Defense Industries. The TARN is the lifeblood of this town. Not only does TARN provide valuable jobs that put food on the table for more than half of our town's residents, but they donate hundreds of thousands of dollars to community programs in Archangel every single year. We'd have a whole lot fewer problems going on in this country if more companies took a page out of TARN's book.
So then you definitely ruled out the security force of TARN's Special Projects Division as potential suspects.
Do I? No. You know what? This conference is over.
Sheriff, you didn't answer. Sheriff, you didn't answer.
I wish I could say that I was surprised when I first heard about Thomas Novak's disappearance. This isn't New York. This isn't LA. Archangel is barely a blip on the radar, but this isn't the first time teens have vanished from our streets, and it's sure as hell not the first time TARN was involved. I remember the night my sister, Amanda Jones, went missing. It was October 1999. My breath fogged the cold night air. Below me, the high school homecoming game was in full swing. I wasn't actually in high school, mind you, but in a town like Archangel, there wasn't much else going on. My sister wasn't at the game, but that wasn't out of the ordinary. She wasn't big on football. Hell, she wasn't big on anything that didn't involve raising hell at TARN. She hated the company, mostly because of the environmental damage they were wreaking on the community. That night, she and her friend Crystal Mira were at Frank's Diner, hammering out plans for yet another protest at a TARN R&D facility. At the time, I wasn't real clear on the particulars. 13-year-old me wasn't the kind of person who could wrap his head around something outside my small bubble of the world. But Amanda, she was different. Even at 17, she saw how important it was for regular people to take a stand against organizations like TARN. Amanda and Crystal left the diner around 8. That's where we lost them. That's where the world lost them. Our parents reported my sister missing to the sheriff's office, but they got the brush off. When Sheriff Donovic, the nepotistic mother of our current Sheriff Donovic, finally bothered to do her job, she investigated for a whopping 2 days before declaring my sister a runaway. Because apparently teenagers who organize protests must be delinquents, even if they get straight A's in school. You can't imagine how her disappearance changed my parents, how it destroyed who they were, not knowing if someone had their daughter, not knowing if she was dead or alive. It turned them into shells of the people they were. Our house changed from this living, vibrant home to a cold place. TARN did that to us. What they did to Thomas's family, I'm convinced of that. They stole my sister the way they stole Thomas, except the difference now is that the media has their eye on Archangel. For the first time since they stole Amanda from us, I see a real chance to drag those responsible out of the shadows and into the clear light of day. I have no illusions about how easy this will be. The people at the helm of TARN hold the kind of power that people like me have a tough time comprehending. I'm recording my observations both for my own use and also to ensure a record of what I see and do will survive if something happens to me. I've enlisted the help of a friend to help keep me objective throughout the process, given how close I am to all of this. That's it for now. Good night, and may whatever you believe in go with you.
Audio file number 1.1. Interview of Sean O'Connor by Brandon Jones. October 1st, 2019. Storage room. Deck Dominion Cards and Games. Township of Archangel, Washington State.
But I can't tell for sure. I'm no good with this kind of stuff.
I thought nerds were supposed to be technology experts.
First of all, that's offensive. Second, I'm a sci-fi fantasy nerd, not a gadget nerd.
Isn't it depressing that there's more than one kind?
How is it that even after 10 years, you are just as condescending?
Well, you know, being predictable makes it easier to keep friends, Brandon.
Sure, continuity. Yeah, you are definitely a friend. Which, by the way, thank you again for coming up here to the Pacific Northwest.
Man, you don't have to thank me. It's your sister. You've always had my back. Now it's my chance to return the favor.
Got your 6. Right, well, thanks all the same. So, I wanted to start with a short introduction so the listeners are familiar with your background. So tell me about yourself.
Okay. What do you want to know?
Let's start with how you distract yourself from the soul-crushing absurdity of this existence.
So, you want me to tell you about my job, or...?
Yeah, jobs are a good way to ignore the inevitable heat death of the universe.
Okay. Well, I'm an attorney.
They give you a BMW when you join the firm?
You know I'm a public defender, asshole.
Working for the oppressed. I knew there was a reason I liked you. Now tell everyone how we know each other.
We met in the Army.
Could you elaborate on that?
Well, we were intelligence analysts. 1st Expeditionary Military Intelligence Brigade. Basically, we're the smart kids who got picked on in high school go when they enlist.
I find that offensive, but in the interest of time, let's move on. Tell me about where you're from and where you live now.
Like I said, I'm an attorney. I'm originally from Waco, Texas, and now I also live in Waco, Texas.
Waco, the town whose claim to fame is being the site of the modern day's biggest federal overreach? That Waco?
No, Brandon. Our claim to fame is that Waco is the filming site for the world-renowned HGTV hit series Fixer Upper, starring the always charming Chip and Joanna Gaines.
I've heard about the apocalyptic death cult, but I've never heard of that, man.
That's because it's a show for normal, well-adjusted people, Brandon.
Point taken. So, are you married? Kids?
Married for 5 years, parent to a boy for about 2 months.
2 months into parenthood, and you're already an absent father. Outstanding.
Wow, okay. You are really trying to get me in trouble with my wife, aren't you?
What's she like, your wife?
Oh, well, I don't think she'd much appreciate me sharing her personal details, with a bunch of strangers.
Fair enough. How about something general?
Let's just say the only person right now that she hates more than me is you.
Hates? Hey, she's never even met me.
I mean, she's got to have something to point all that anger at, and you're the reason I'm not in Texas. Plus, she is an accomplished hater. That's one of the things I love about her.
All that hate's gonna burn her up, kid.
Did you just make a Red Dawn reference?
Yes. Yes, I did.
Did you see the new Red Dawn reboot with that guy from Thor?
Are you messing with me right now?
No way, man. It's a solid movie.
In the interest of our continued friendship, I'm going to pretend you didn't ask me that question.
Hey, you can't bag on it unless you've actually seen it.
Enough. Moving on to the last interview question. Why did I ask you to come to Washington?
Do you want the reason I think or the reason you told me?
How about both?
Well, the reason you told me was that you wanted someone to be an objective voice in this investigation. From what you explained, it sounds like you're pretty close to the case.
That's the truth. Now, why do you think I asked you here?
I mean, I think it's handy to have a lawyer around whenever you're dealing with big bad companies who don't want people nosing around their business.
Very perceptive, counselor.
That's why I make the medium bucks.
Speaking of big bad companies, did you get a chance to check out the websites I sent you?
I did. I read them on the flight into Seattle.
What'd you think of the TARN site?
There's not a lot to have an opinion about, and the site looks like a WordPress template that never got updated.
TARN is a multinational defense contractor with billions in assets. Don't you think it's weird for them to have such a stale web presence, man?
Yeah, I guess.
What do you mean you guess?
It could just mean that they need to hire a social media coordinator.
I'm pretty sure the blandness is intentional. It's by design. TARN is old school military industrial complex, man. They've gotten pretty good at flying below the radar.
Okay, so having a bad web presence is not exactly a crime against humanity.
Okay, then did you check out the links I sent you from Thomas Novak's YouTube channel?
Yes, I did.
And,
if I'm being honest, the videos are a little out there, man. The guy says TARN is making human-animal hybrids. That's crazy.
It only seems crazy because it's a breaking story.
No, it seems crazy because it's crazy.
Revolutionary technology always seems crazy until some company does it, and then people gradually get used to the idea. Look at what Microsoft is doing with their underwater data processing centers, man.
What is an underwater data processing center?
A massive server farm, but completely underwater.
So, I mean, I feel like underwater computers would be less likely to work than, dry ones.
The computers are contained in watertight containers, dumbass. Submerging the servers means they don't have to pay for cooling.
Okay, at the risk of validating the craziness in this conversation, I will admit that I've heard about a company in Kansas City doing something similar, but in a cave.
TARN's doing it too. They have server farms just like Microsoft's, but out in the lake.
Is that really a bad thing? It's probably better for the environment, using less energy, right?
Oh, yeah, it's green. It's green. See, that's what I'm saying. People say new ideas are crazy until they see the potential application. The difference here is that TARN isn't just building server farms. They're actively pursuing augmented respiration by splicing human and amphibian genetic material together.
People say these ideas are crazy because they, A, sound like something out of science fiction, and B, have literally zero evidence backing them up.
All you have to do is follow the money, man. If TARN can make money on it, then you can assume they'll be performing the research.
I hadn't realized the turn people into fish industry was so lucrative.
I'm talking about the money to be made in application. Think about how the oil industry would get turned upside down if suddenly you could send an actual person to the ocean floor to prospect for drilling.
Okay, admittedly that would be cool. But just because somebody says, hey, wouldn't it be wild if this thing exists, doesn't mean that companies are actually making that, thing.
Dude, you are not listening. The fact that TARN has so much potential money to be made off a project like this is exactly why we can assume it's happening.
No, I see the point. I'm just not willing to make the jump from this thing is possible to this thing is happening without seeing some evidence first. Look, man, I get that this is your sister. And, you want to find out if these TARN people had something to do with her going missing. But I'm not going to dive headfirst into every theory you have just because you think it's true. I need more proof if I'm going to wade into the deep end with you.
Fine. You want proof? I've got someone I want you to meet. Part of the reason I liked Sean was that he wasn't afraid to call bullshit when he saw something he didn't agree with. Plus, he was objective, almost to a fault. Honestly, it was a little annoying, but I knew I needed that kind of objectivity if I wanted this case to go anywhere. Sean wasn't willing to take Thomas's video at face value. He wanted something more concrete if he was going to buy into the possibility that TARN had something to do with the disappearances. So I decided to get in touch with an old girlfriend from high school. We broke up around the time we'd graduated. She'd gone off to college and become a journalist, and I had enlisted in the army. We kept in touch over the years, and I knew she'd investigated TARN. Though if the rumors I'd heard about her were true, she paid quite a price for her work.
Audio file number 1.4. Interview of Jesse Nuentes by Brandon Jones and Sean O'Connor. October 5th, 2019. Residence of Jesse Nuentes, Township of Archangel, Washington State.
Jesse, it's great to see you. Thanks for meeting with us.
It's good to see you too, Bran. And your friend?
Yeah, sorry, this is...
Sean O'Connor. It's very nice to meet you, ma'am.
Wow. Ma'am, is it? I didn't think I looked that old.
Oh, no, ma'am. I didn't mean it like that.
That's just Sean's Texas upbringing showing. He really can't help himself.
Oh no. Are you one of those American by birth, Texan by the grace of God kind of people?
I wouldn't say it's by the grace of God. I think I just got lucky.
Is this guy for real?
Unfortunately, yes. He's a good guy, though.
I'll take your word for it.
Fair enough. So, Jesse, why don't you start with telling us about your background?
I've been working as a journalist and copywriter for about 17 years or so. Mostly freelance writing, though I've done some video work as well.
But you've been focused on investigating the relationship between the U.S. military and contractors recently. Am I right?
I had been for the last couple of years. Not anymore, though.
What kind of project are you working on these days?
Currently, I'm an independent delivery consultant.
Is that like an Associated Press gig or...
Uber, actually. Grubhub too, if I have time.
Oh. When did you make that transition?
Recently.
I didn't realize.
Are you surprised?
Actually, yeah. You're probably the last person I'd expect to change careers.
You shouldn't be. Surprised, I mean.
I don't understand.
Well, Brandon, when you're faced with the choice of staying in journalism and starving or finding other work and eating, it's not really much of a choice.
Jesus, Jesse, I'm sorry. I know the freelance game is tough, but I didn't realize someone with your kind of experience would have that much trouble finding work.
It doesn't have anything to do with experience. I got blacklisted.
Whoa. Really? What happened?
Officially? Nothing. As far as the major media outlets are concerned, I just don't exist.
Unofficially?
I think I got too close to something at TARN and someone very high up the food chain wanted to shut me up.
I don't understand. What kind of project were you working on?
A timeline of documented incidences where American defense contractors have silenced those speaking out against them.
Like whistleblowers?
Whistleblowers for sure, but I didn't want to limit it to just them. I was looking at people like church leaders and non-proliferation activists as well. Basically, anyone who took issue with the buckets of money our government has dumped into companies like TARN, while requiring virtually no oversight into how those dollars were spent.
Did you do any research into environmentalist groups protesting TARN?
Are you asking if I found anything out about your sister?
Did you?
I'm sorry, Brandon, but no. My other reporting gigs dried up before I got that far into the project. Looking for other work has been eating up all my time.
No, you don't have to apologize, Jesse. It's a crap situation. I get that.
Is there anything else I could help you with?
Maybe. We're trying to find out information about TARN's involvement in the Thomas Novak case.
I'm 0 for 2 then. Sorry, Brandon, but I really don't know anything about Thomas Novak aside from what's been on the news.
What about the Strategic Forge leak?
Okay, now that I might be able to help you with. What do you want to know?
Is TARN actually creating genetically modified humans?
Are you serious?
He is completely serious, unfortunately.
Well, the short answer is no, they're not.
What's the long answer?
The data in Strategic Forge wasn't about creating human hybrids, per se. It was more focused on developing what they call unconventional maritime vessels.
Which means...
Think about the materials used in traditional shipbuilding. You've got fiberglass, steel, maybe even some wood, right? The thing with all those materials is that they have very distinctive radar signatures. Navies are really good at spotting vessels like that when they're at sea. Now, imagine if you were to build a vessel incorporating some kind of biological material. You'd end up with a totally different radar profile, wouldn't you? One that would be tough to distinguish from sea life.
Are you saying that TARN is making boats made out of fish?
I'm not saying they're doing anything. I'm just telling you in theory.
Sorry, but what evidence do you have to support this theory?
I mean, I don't have any evidence to back up this theory specifically.
Do you have any evidence at all?
I don't appreciate the condescension, Texas. I don't owe you any explanation. You two came to me, remember?
Look, lady, we're hunting for information that we can use to keep this investigation going beyond this interview. If you can't provide that, then this is just a waste of time.
Whoa, guys, let's everyone just tone it down. Jesse, I'm sure that Sean didn't mean to offend. He's a lawyer. He can't help but be abrasive sometimes.
A Southern lawyer? Jesus. What does it feel like to be a living stereotype?
The white suits and bottomless mint juleps do get a little stale after a while.
At least you're funny. I'll give you that one.
Does that mean we're friends?
How about not enemies?
I'll take it.
Okay, so now that we're back to not hating each other.
Mr. Southern Lawyer was asking about whether I had any solid evidence.
That I was.
With respect to Strategic Forge, I've got nothing more than rumors.
What about beyond Strategic Forge?
I might have something.
You okay, Jesse?
Yeah, I'm fine. Well, This isn't something I feel totally comfortable talking about.
We can go off the record if that makes you feel more comfortable.
No, it's okay. It's not like I have anything else to lose. There's a man who lives in town. Someone you might be interested in. His name is Ray.
Just Ray?
I don't have a last name.
That's a bit vague, Jesse.
Well, he's not the kind of person who broadcasts his presence.
Why is that?
For starters, he's supposedly been the mastermind behind discrediting every anti-TARN movement in recent memory. That's not the kind of thing that wins popularity contests.
My sister was one of those kinds of people. Is there any chance he targeted her?
Honestly, Bran, I'm not sold on TARN physically going after protesters when they can just undermine support for them. Discrediting people is a lot less risky than disappearing them.
TARN is evil, Jesse. I don't think they'd balk at killing people if they thought it'd further their goals.
Look, hey, whoa, Bran, I don't think Jesse's suggesting they're the good guys, bud.
No, you're right. I'm sorry, Jesse. What else can you tell us about this Ray guy?
Just that he's rumored to be plugged into the leadership at TARN's Special Projects Division.
Special Projects? Where have I heard that name before?
Our sheriff's temper tantrum the other day.
Sorry, what?
The press conference the other day, one of the reporters asked the sheriff if she thought Special Projects had anything to do with Thomas Novak's disappearance.
Ah, that's the one. She called them all fake news and then shut down the conference.
Is there any chance this Ray guy has something to do with Thomas Novak going missing?
I've got nothing to say about that.
What information can you give us about him?
Only that Special Projects is supposedly where the really weird stuff at TARN gets made.
Weird like genetic manipulation in biovessels?
Nobody knows for sure where the Strategic Forge document came from, but if I had to guess, I'd say it probably came from Special Projects.
Any idea where we can find him?
Why?
Because I need to talk to him.
When I said look into him, I meant that you should go around and ask about him. Not go and confront the guy.
I'm not going to confront him. I just want to ask him a couple of questions.
I don't think that's going to work.
Why do you say that?
Do you remember that big wreck outside of town about 10 or so years ago? A semi-truck smashed into that little sports car out on Highway 23?
That was the same guy?
Yep. Ray was driving the sports car. The cop suspected that the guy in the truck was gunning for him when he hit Ray.
You're sure about this?
I had a contact who works for the city. He confirmed it.
I don't remember hearing anything about an attempted murder.
That's because the cops kept that part of the story hushed up.
Are you saying the Archangel Sheriff's Department took part in a cover-up?
I'm saying that TARN has enough pull in this town to keep things quiet when it serves their purpose.
I still need to talk to him.
You're a stubborn bastard, you know that?
It's part of my charm.
The only other lead on him I have is that he used to lecture at Washington State University in Pullman at some point, but I can't guarantee that information is accurate.
Thanks, Jesse. I really appreciate you taking the time to sit down with us.
Don't mention it. This is probably the most interesting thing I've done since my life became nothing but delivering tacos.
Seeing how far Jesse had fallen from grace opened my eyes to how much there was to lose by pressing forward with this investigation. Jesse was an incredible journalist. She had writing credits for every major news network in the business. The thought that all that work, all that credibility could just dry up because she'd gotten too close to TARN was enough to make Sean and I choose our next steps very carefully. We knew we needed to find and talk to Ray, but we also knew that we needed to be careful with how we went about it. The university staff directory didn't have a single entry for Ray, so that was a dead end. A search of social media platforms provided still more nothing, though that wasn't at all surprising. The guy wasn't likely to be posting Insta pics from Special Projects' newest creations. With nothing left to do, I decided to reach out to a guy I knew from my youth who was working as a deputy for the sheriff's department, in the hopes that the accident record from when Ray was run off the road might still be on file. It was definitely a long shot, but with nowhere else to turn, it was the only hope we had. The guy wasn't so much a friend exactly. He'd been, well, kind of a douchebag in high school, but, you know, people can change. So I had high hopes that I'd find a totally different person. Unfortunately, I was wrong.
Next time on the TARN Conspiracy.
How long have you worked for TARN?
Going on 12 years now.
Do you like it?
TARN is dedicated to protecting the people who live in this country.
TARN isn't some mom-and-pop corner store, Dave. They're a multinational weapons manufacturer. They make cluster bombs, for God's sake.
You think TARN abducted that kid?
I'm doing some investigating on the kid who went missing. You heard of Thomas Novak?
I can tell you exactly what happened to that kid.
Is that right?
Uh-huh. He got involved in some weirdo satanic stuff, and the cult sacrificed him.
Why are your shoes all red? Is that blood?
I don't know what else it could be.
How is it still so wet? Thomas disappeared weeks ago.
This isn't blood from weeks ago. This is fresh, man. What in the actual fuck was that?